The CEO laughed at the janitor's 7-year-old daughter. 9 languages, impossible. But during a billion-dollar deal, when everything collapsed due to translation errors, the little girl saved it all. Before we dive into the story, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Enjoy the story. The glass elevator climbed 42 floors, and Marcus Hartwell didn't bother looking up from his phone. At 32, he'd built Hartwell Tech into a billion-dollar empire, and every second counted. His Italian suit cost more than most people earned in a month, and he wore his success like armor. "Hold the door," a voice called out. Marcus didn't move. The doors slid closed just as David Chen, the building's night janitor, reached the elevator with his 7-year-old daughter, Lily. Through the glass, Marcus watched them without a flicker of acknowledgement. 20 minutes later, Marcus strode through the marble lobby, his mind already on tomorrow's negotiations. That's when he heard it. A small voice speaking what sounded like flawless French. He turned. There she was, that janitor's kid, sitting cross-legged by the lobby's ornamental fountain, surrounded by library books. She was reading aloud, switching between languages with each page turn, French, Spanish, something that might have been Mandarin. Marcus found himself walking closer, curiosity getting the better of him. "What are you doing?" he asked, his tone sharp. Lily looked up, her dark eyes bright behind slightly crooked glasses. "Practicing, sir. I'm working on my 9th language. Japanese is harder than I thought," but Marcus laughed. It wasn't a kind laugh. It was the sound of a man who'd heard too many impossible claims in business meetings. 9 languages. He shook his head, his smile condescending. "Sweetheart, children your age can barely handle their homework. You're just playing pretend with those books, aren't you?" Lily's face fell. Her small hands clutched the Japanese textbook tighter. "I'm not pretending," she whispered. "I really can." "Kids say all sorts of things," Marcus interrupted, glancing at his watch. "Imagination is great, but there's a difference between fantasy and reality. You'll understand when you're older." He walked away, already dismissing the encounter from his mind. Behind him, David appeared from the service hallway, pushing his cleaning cart. He'd heard everything. "Come on, sweetheart," David said softly, his weathered hands gentle on his daughter's shoulder. Time to head to the library. Lily gathered her books with trembling fingers, blinking back tears. As they walked toward the exit, she glanced back once at Marcus Hartwell's retreating figure. She didn't know it yet, but in 3 days, she would stand in his boardroom. In 3 days, she would hold his entire empire in her small, underestimated hands. In 3 days, Marcus Hartwell would learn the most expensive lesson of his life. But tonight, she was just a little girl who'd been laughed at by a man who thought he knew everything. The city lights reflected off the glass towers as David and Lily disappeared into the evening. In his office, high above, Marcus had already forgotten her. He had no idea that the child he'd just dismissed would soon be the only person standing between him and the collapse of everything he'd built. Every evening after David finished his shift, he and Lily made the same journey. 3 blocks east to the old Carnegie Library, where the stone lions guarded the entrance like silent sentinels. Tonight, the walk felt heavier than usual. "Papa, why did that man laugh at me?" Lily asked as they climbed the worn steps, her small hand gripping his calloused one. David's jaw tightened. He'd spent 20 years cleaning offices, pushing mops across marble floors, while executives in $1,000 suits walked past him like he was furniture. Invisible, unimportant, but his daughter, she deserved better than that dismissive cruelty. She deserved to be seen. "Some people," he said carefully, choosing his words like precious stones, "can't see what's right in front of them. They think success means they know everything. They think money makes them smarter than everyone else." "But I really can speak 9 languages," Lily whispered, her voice small and hurt. "Why didn't he believe me?" David stopped on the library steps and knelt down, looking into his daughter's eyes. eyes that held more wisdom and determination than most adults he knew, because he's never had to work for anything the way you work, mi amor. He's never spent hours at a library table while other kids played. He doesn't understand that greatness comes from dedication, not from corner offices. Inside, the library hummed with quiet purpose. The familiar smell of old books and furniture polish welcomed them like an embrace. Mrs. Rodriguez, the evening librarian, waved from behind her desk. She'd been watching Lily's extraordinary journey for 3 years now, ever since the 4-year-old had asked for her first Spanish children's book. "Portuguese tonight?" Mrs. Rodriguez called out, smiling warmly. "Japanese," Lily replied, and David heard her confidence slowly returning. "The particles are tricky, but I'm getting better. I want to master the formal business style." "Business style? Planning to negotiate some deals?" Mrs. Rodriguez teased gently. Lily didn't smile. "I want to be ready for anything." David settled into his usual chair by the window, the one with the duct-taped armrest, and pulled out his work shirt that needed mending. He watched his daughter transform. No longer the hurt child from the lobby, but a scholar absorbed in her passion, her small face intense with concentration. Around them, the library held other stories. A homeless man dozed near the radiator. A nursing student highlighted textbooks under the warm lamp. A young mother read to her toddler in the children's section. This was Lily's community, David thought. These were the people who saw her brilliance. "Listen, Papa," Lily said after 20 minutes of silent study, speaking in rapid, flawless Japanese. "The cherry blossoms fall like snow in spring, and beneath their petals we find the courage to begin again. Beautiful, mi amor." David didn't understand the words, but he understood dedication. While other children watched cartoons, Lily devoured dictionaries. While they played video games, she practiced pronunciation with language apps on Mrs. Rodriguez's donated tablet. While they complained about homework, his daughter chose to learn, every single night, without fail. "Someday," Lily whispered, switching seamlessly to Mandarin, then German, then back to English, her voice fierce with determination, "I'm going to show that man. I'm going to prove that children aren't just make-believe and imagination. I'm going to prove that I'm real." David reached across the scarred wooden table and squeezed her hand, his heart breaking and swelling simultaneously. "You don't need to prove anything to people like him, sweetheart. Your worth doesn't depend on his recognition." But even as he said it, he wondered if that was true. His daughter had a gift, a genuine, extraordinary gift that could open doors he'd never walked through, doors he couldn't even imagine. She just needed someone with power to actually see it, someone to give her a chance. 4 floors above them, in the business section, a young executive named Sarah Kim was frantically researching Japanese business customs and protocols. Her boss, Marcus Hartwell, had a crucial meeting scheduled in just days. The biggest deal of his entire career, and absolutely everything was about to go catastrophically wrong. Marcus stood at his floor-to-ceiling office window on the 42nd floor, watching dawn break over Seattle. Below, the city was waking up, cars streaming across bridges, lights flickering on in apartment buildings, ferry boats crossing the Sound. Somewhere down there in that vast sprawl, David Chen was probably finishing his night shift, emptying trash cans and mopping floors. Marcus didn't spare him a thought. Janitors were background noise. His mind was entirely focused on the Takahashi Corporation, $1.2 billion. The deal would triple Hartwell Tech's valuation overnight and cement Marcus Hartwell as one of the youngest titans in the technology industry. At 32, he'd already built an empire. This deal would build a dynasty. He'd worked for this moment his entire adult life. Nothing could be allowed to go wrong. The Takahashi delegation arrives Thursday morning at 9. his assistant Jennifer announced, entering with her tablet and her usual efficient energy. Final headcount, 6 executives, all from Tokyo headquarters. Mr. Takahashi himself is leading the team, which is, as you know, extremely significant. Translation services confirmed? Marcus asked, still gazing out at his empire, his reflection strong and confident in the glass. Yes and no. Jennifer's hesitation made him turn sharply. She rarely hesitated. Wilson Translation Services just cancelled 30 minutes ago. Their senior Japanese specialist, Margaret Chen, the woman we specifically requested, had a family emergency. Her mother had a stroke. She flew to Osaka this morning on the first available flight. Marcus felt the first flutter of concern in his chest. Find another service, immediately. I've already called 4 companies in the past hour. Jennifer's fingers flew across her tablet. Everyone with high-level Japanese business expertise is completely booked. There's a major international tech conference in San Francisco this week. Apparently, half the qualified business translators on the entire West Coast are there. Then find someone from the East Coast, Chicago, New York, Boston. I don't care what it costs. Fly them in first class if you have to. But even as he said it, projecting the absolute confidence that had always served him well, a small knot of real anxiety formed in his chest. The Takahashi executives weren't just traditional, they were famous for it. They'd insisted on conducting the entire preliminary negotiation in Japanese, only switching to English for the final contract signing. Cultural respect, they'd explained. A test of Hartwell's commitment to true partnership. Marcus had agreed readily, arrogantly confident that translation was a minor logistical detail, easily handled by hiring the right expert. Now that minor detail was rapidly becoming a catastrophic problem. By Tuesday afternoon, Jennifer had exhausted every professional option on her extensive list. Her usual calm was fracturing into visible stress. There's a professor at the University of Washington, she said, her voice tight with desperation. Dr. Ellen Marsh. She teaches Japanese literature and culture, very respected in academic circles. She hasn't done business translation in about 15 years, but she's agreed to help as a personal favor. Book her, Marcus ordered, trying to ignore the warning bells in his head, and keep looking for a backup. Someone with actual business experience. I don't care if we have to pay someone $10,000 to fly in from New York tomorrow. Wednesday morning brought worse news. Dr. Marsh called to cancel. Her elderly father had died suddenly in Portland, and she was driving south for the funeral arrangements. The backup translator from New York, a highly recommended professional named Robert Tanaka, had unexplained visa issues and couldn't travel domestically. Something about an expired passport and a bureaucratic nightmare at the federal building. Marcus felt the deal, his dynasty, his legacy, slipping through his fingers like water. There has to be someone, he said through clenched teeth, his hands gripping the edge of his mahogany desk until his knuckles went white. In a city of 4 million people, there has to be one qualified Japanese translator available. Jennifer looked up from her phone, her face pale with exhaustion and stress. Marcus, I've called everyone, every agency, every freelancer, every university contact I have. The absolute best I can do is Chen Wei, from the university's International Exchange Program. He's a linguistics graduate student from Taiwan, very bright, fluent in Japanese. But he's 23 years old. He's never done professional business translation, and he's honestly terrified. Fine, whatever. Just get him here tomorrow at 9 a.m. sharp. Brief him on the deal tonight. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He lay in his penthouse bedroom, staring at the ceiling, running nightmare scenarios through his mind. Language wasn't just words, it was nuance, tone, cultural context, subtle hierarchies of respect. One wrong particle, one misunderstood honorific, and the entire deal could collapse. For the first time in years, Marcus Hartwell felt genuinely bone-deep afraid. Thursday morning arrived with grey skies and cold rain hammering against the windows. Marcus was in the office by 6 a.m., his third cup of coffee already cooling on his desk. He reviewed documents he'd already memorized, read briefs he could recite from memory, checked and rechecked details that were already perfect. The conference room had been transformed into a carefully orchestrated cultural statement. Fresh ikebana flower arrangements sat on the credenza, precisely styled, nothing excessive. Traditional Japanese tea service waited on the side table, the proper cups and ceremony items arranged with meticulous care. Seating arrangements respected every nuance of business hierarchy. Name cards in both English and Japanese kanji sat at each place. Everything was absolutely perfect, except for the one thing that mattered most: communication. Chenwei arrived at 8:30, a nervous graduate student with wire-rimmed glasses, clutching a battered laptop and a stack of reference materials. He was 23, academically brilliant with textbook Japanese, but he'd never translated a business negotiation in his entire life. His hands shook as he set up his materials. "I'll do my absolute best, Mr. Hartwell," Chenwei said, his voice betraying his terror. "But I should mention, business Japanese has very specific honorifics and formal structures. Keigo, the formal register, has 3 different levels. If I accidentally use the wrong level or mess up the hierarchy markers, it could be considered deeply insulting to someone of Mr. Takahashi's status." Marcus felt ice water pour through his veins. "Then don't make mistakes." "I'm just saying. Maybe we should have some kind of backup plan. Or perhaps we could reschedule when—" "You're the backup plan?" Marcus snapped, his carefully maintained composure cracking. Everyone else, every single qualified professional, was unavailable or cancelled. You're what we have, so you'd better be enough. Chenwei went pale and nodded, returning to his frantic review of business terminology. At 8:45, Sarah Kim knocked urgently on the office door, her expression tense. The Takahashi delegation just entered the building lobby. Mr. Takahashi himself is leading the group. They're on their way up. Marcus straightened his tie with hands that wanted to shake, took a deep breath, and put on his confident smile, the smile that had closed 1,000 deals, the smile that never revealed doubt. He'd built an empire on believing he could handle absolutely anything. He was about to discover the hard limits of that belief. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime. 6 men in impeccable dark suits stepped out in precise formation, led by Takahashi Hiroshi, a silver-haired executive in his 60s whose very presence commanded instant respect and attention. Marcus bowed, exactly as he'd practiced dozens of times in his office. "Takahashi-san, welcome to Hartwell Technologies." Takahashi bowed in return, his face professionally expressionless, his eyes sharp and evaluating. Then he spoke in rapid, formal Japanese, his tone expectant, his words clearly important. Chenwei's face flushed. "Mr. Takahashi says, he is deeply honored to be here and looks forward to, mutually beneficial discussions regarding the partnership proposal and, wait, did he say comprehensive evaluation? Or preliminary assessment, I think." Marcus's stomach dropped like a stone. Chenwei's voice wavered with obvious uncertainty. Takahashi's eyes narrowed, just slightly, barely perceptible, but enough for someone watching carefully. This wasn't going to work. They'd barely started, and it was already failing. The meeting hadn't even begun, and Marcus could already feel his entire empire starting to collapse around him. The conference room felt like a pressure cooker ready to explode. Marcus sat across the polished table from Takahashi Hiroshi, watching 6 months of meticulous preparation evaporate with every fumbled translation, every uncertain pause, every bead of sweat on Chenwei's forehead. Mr. Takahashi wishes to discuss the intellectual property arrangements in detail, Chen Wei said, his voice shaking. He's concerned about... Wait, did he say exclusive manufacturing rights or shared licensing protocols? The particle he used, GA versus WA, could mean either one, and in this context. Takahashi spoke again, his tone noticeably sharper, more clipped. Chen Wei went pale, his hands gripping his laptop. I believe he's asking about our quality assurance manufacturing protocols, or maybe our supply chain verification standards. I'm sorry, Mr. Hartwell. He's using very specific technical business terminology that I haven't encountered in my academic studies. One of the younger Japanese executives, a man named Nakamura, leaned toward Takahashi and whispered something rapid and urgent. Marcus didn't need a translation to read the body language. Disapproval, deep concern, doubt about Hartwell's professionalism and preparedness. Sarah Kim, sitting to Marcus's left, tried to salvage the moment. Perhaps if we could refer to the written proposal documents. Takahashi raised one hand slightly, a small gesture that commanded instant silence. He spoke directly to Marcus, and this time his meaning was devastatingly clear even before the translation. Perhaps, Takahashi said in careful, limited English, each word chosen precisely, we should reschedule this meeting for when you have proper professional translation services, Hartwell-san. The formal courtesy made it worse somehow. It was polite. It was professional. It was absolutely devastating. Marcus felt his entire world tilting sideways, the floor seeming to drop away beneath him. Please, Takahashi-san, if you could give us just one moment to... I understand time differences and business pressures, Takahashi continued, his English precise but clearly uncomfortable for him. But respect for clear communication is respect for partnership itself. We cannot discuss $1.2 billion agreement through. He gestured delicately, almost apologetically at Chen Wei. Uncertain and unreliable translations. This shows lack of preparation, lack of respect for proper business protocols. Indeed, the younger executives were already standing, gathering their leather portfolios and materials with synchronized efficiency. The meeting had lasted exactly 17 minutes. 17 minutes to destroy 8 months of work. Countless transatlantic flights, endless preparation, detailed proposals, cultural research, relationship building. All dissolving like smoke because Marcus Hartwell couldn't find one competent person who spoke Japanese. Please, Marcus heard himself say, and he hated, absolutely hated, the naked desperation in his own voice. There must be some way to salvage this situation. Some accommodation we can... Takahashi stood, buttoning his suit jacket with deliberate finality. When you are properly prepared, Hartwell-san, when you have retained appropriate professional services, please contact my office. Perhaps in 3 months' time we can meet again, if our board of directors still maintains interest in this partnership. 3 months. Marcus's mind raced through the implications. In 3 months he knew with absolute certainty Takahashi would sign with Harrison Tech instead. His primary competitor, James Harrison, had been circling this deal like a shark scenting blood in the water. Harrison had the connections, the reputation, and most importantly, the preparation that Marcus had somehow catastrophically failed to secure. The Japanese delegation moved toward the conference room door in precise formation, a choreographed exit that felt like a funeral procession for Marcus's ambitions. He stood there, rooted to the carpet, frozen in shock, watching everything he'd built threatening to crumble into dust. His empire, his reputation, his legacy, all collapsing because of one missing translator. Then he heard it. A small, clear voice from the hallway outside. "Excuse me, sir?" Everyone turned as if moved by a single string. In the doorway stood David Chen in his grey maintenance uniform, worn and slightly too large. a toolbox in his weathered hands, and beside him, clutching her pink backpack with both hands, was 7-year-old Lily, her dark eyes steady behind those slightly crooked glasses. "I'm terribly sorry to interrupt such an important meeting," David said, his voice respectful but urgent, every word carefully measured. "There's an emergency repair needed in this conference room, a water leak behind the wall panel that could potentially damage the building's electrical system. But my daughter—" He glanced down at Lily, and something unreadable flashed in his eyes. Pride, protectiveness, hope, and perhaps a touch of vindication. "She heard these gentlemen speaking Japanese as we came down the hallway, and she said something I thought you should hear, Mr. Hartwell." Marcus stared at them, confusion and anger warring in his chest. This was literally the worst possible moment for interruptions. His world was ending, and the janitor was talking about water leaks. But Takahashi had stopped moving. He was looking at Lily with open curiosity, his head tilted slightly. Lily stepped forward, her small sneakers silent on the carpet. Her voice was suddenly clear and confident, no trace of childish hesitation. And then she spoke, in flawless, formally perfect, absolutely impeccable Japanese. Every single person in that room went absolutely, utterly still. The words flowing from Lily's small mouth were impossible. She spoke with the proper honorifics, the exact levels of Keigo formality, the correct particles and grammar structures, the precise cultural nuances appropriate for addressing a senior business executive of Takahashi's status and position. It wasn't just fluent, it was masterful. Takahashi's eyes widened in genuine shock. One of his younger associates actually gasped audibly. Nakamura's mouth literally fell open. Chenwei dropped his pen, the small sound loud in the stunned silence. "Takahashi-san," Lily said in formally perfect Japanese, bowing with exact protocol. The right depth, the right duration, the right hand placement. "I deeply and humbly apologize for this unexpected interruption of your important business meeting. I was walking past the conference room with my father, and I heard you speaking in the hallway. I realized that there has been a grave misunderstanding and miscommunication in your negotiations. I believe, if you would permit me, and I understand I'm just a child asking for your consideration, I believe I can help clarify the communication challenges you've been experiencing." Marcus stood frozen, his brain refusing to process what he was witnessing. This was the child he'd mocked 3 days ago in the lobby. The little girl he'd dismissed as a pretender, playing make-believe with library books. The kid he'd laughed at for claiming impossible things. Takahashi responded in rapid, complex Japanese, his tone sharp with surprise and what sounded like testing skepticism. He was clearly challenging her, seeing if this was some kind of rehearsed trick. Lily answered without the slightest hesitation, her pronunciation flawless, her confidence absolute. "Yes, honored sir, I am 7 years old. I turned 7 last month. I've been studying Japanese language and culture for 2 full years. I also speak English, Spanish, French, Mandarin Chinese, German, Italian, Portuguese, and Arabic. My father works as a maintenance technician in this building, and I study every evening at the Carnegie Public Library on 5th Avenue with Mrs. Rodriguez, the evening librarian who has helped me access language learning resources." Dri Chenwei, finding his voice, whispered a rushed translation for Marcus, his own face showing complete shock and disbelief. "Mr. Hartwell, she's using the most formal level of Keigo. That's Son Keigo, the highest respect register. Most American university students don't master that until after years of intensive study and immersion. Some never master it at all. How is a 7-year-old child?" Takahashi spoke again, longer this time, a detailed question that sounded like a genuine challenge, testing her knowledge beyond rehearsed phrases. Lily responded with calm, thoughtful dignity, and as she spoke, something extraordinary happened in that room. Takahashi's stern, skeptical expression slowly softened. The younger executives leaned forward, captivated, and clearly impressed. One of them smiled slightly, genuine appreciation crossing his professional reserve. "She's explaining the technical specifications of your software integration proposal," Chen Wei translated, his voice filled with growing awe. "She's clarifying the intellectual property terms that I mistranslated earlier. And she's right. I got the hierarchy structure completely wrong. Oh my God, she's using the correct business terminology. The cultural nuances, the proper respect markers. She understands it all. This is impossible." Marcus couldn't breathe. His chest felt tight. He looked at David, who stood quietly by the doorway, his weathered face carefully neutral, but his eyes shining with fierce, protective pride. Had he known about this moment? Had he somehow planned this intervention? Or was this pure chance, fate giving Marcus one last opportunity he absolutely didn't deserve? Takahashi addressed Lily directly again, a long, complex question that sounded almost gentle now, the testing edge softening into genuine curiosity. Lily's response was thoughtful and measured. Then she turned to Marcus, switching to English with the practiced ease of someone dancing effortlessly between worlds. "Mr. Hartwell," she said, and there was absolutely no anger in her young voice, despite everything he'd said to her, despite his cruel mockery in the lobby, despite his arrogant dismissal of her abilities. "Mr. Takahashi asks if I would be willing to serve as translator for today's business negotiations," he says. She paused, listening as Takahashi spoke again, nodding respectfully, then continuing her translation. "He says that if a 7-year-old American child can master his language with such respect, dedication, and proper cultural understanding, then perhaps your company truly values careful preparation and attention to important details. These are precisely the qualities he seeks in a long-term business partner." Marcus looked at this little girl, this brilliant, extraordinary, utterly impossible little girl with her crooked glasses and pink backpack, and felt shame burn through him like acid poured directly into his soul. 3 days ago, he'd laughed at her, called her claims childish fantasy, dismissed her as just another kid making up stories and playing pretend. Now she held his entire billion-dollar empire in her small, underestimated hands. "Lily," he said, his voice rough with emotion he couldn't quite name, "humility, gratitude, shame, hope. Would you please help us?" She looked up at her father. David Chen, the invisible janitor, the man Marcus had never bothered to learn the name of until this very moment, nodded slowly. Pride and protectiveness warred openly in his expression. "Yes, Mr. Hartwell," Lily said simply, her voice clear and steady. "I'll help you." And as she took her seat between Marcus Hartwell and Takahashi Hiroshi, carefully setting down her pink backpack and opening her worn notebook with the practiced ease of a seasoned professional, Marcus finally understood what he'd been too arrogant, too privileged, too blind to see before. Greatness has absolutely nothing to do with age, wealth, position, or corner offices. It lives in dedication, in passion, in the quiet hours spent pursuing mastery while the rest of the world sleeps. He'd just learned the most important lesson of his entire life from a 7-year-old girl he'd thought was playing make-believe with library books. For the next 3 hours, Marcus Hartwell witnessed something he would remember for the rest of his life. Lily Chen didn't just translate, she orchestrated. She moved between English and Japanese with the grace of a concert pianist playing different instruments, capturing not just words but intention, nuance, cultural context. "Mr. Takahashi expresses concern about the timeline for implementation," Lily said, her small voice steady and professional. "In Japanese business culture, he's using a specific phrase that means he's not rejecting the proposal, but rather opening negotiation space. He's showing respect by raising concerns indirectly. Mr. Hartwell, if you respond by acknowledging his wisdom and asking for his guidance on the timeline, you'll demonstrate proper cultural partnership. Marcus followed her advice exactly. Takahashi's expression shifted, a subtle warming, a small nod of approval. The younger executives began taking notes, occasionally asking Lily clarification questions in rapid Japanese. She answered each one with thoughtful precision, sometimes pausing to think before responding, a sign of respect rather than uncertainty. Mr. Nakamura wants to know about the cybersecurity protocols, Lily translated. But he's using a formal question structure that also implies he's already impressed by what he's seen in the proposal. This is positive momentum, Mr. Hartwell. He's looking for reasons to say yes. Sarah Kim, watching from the side, felt tears prick her eyes. This 7-year-old child was doing what a dozen expensive consultants couldn't do. She was building a bridge between two worlds. During a break for tea service, Takahashi spoke directly to Lily in Japanese. She listened carefully, then smiled. The first genuine smile Marcus had seen from her all day. Mr. Takahashi says I remind him of his own granddaughter in Kyoto, Lily translated. She's 8 and studying English. He says dedication in young people gives him hope for the future. She paused. He also said something else. He said that a company wise enough to listen to talent regardless of age or position is a company worthy of partnership. Marcus felt those words land like stones in his chest. Wise enough to listen? He hadn't listened. He'd mocked her. This miracle was happening despite him, not because of him. The negotiation continued. Complex technical details, financial structures, intellectual property rights, manufacturing timelines. Lily handled it all. She asked clarifying questions when needed, suggested compromises that honored both sides, and somehow made everyone in the room feel heard and respected. At 4:30 p.m., Takahashi stood and bowed deeply to Lily first, then to Marcus. Hartwell-san, he said in English, choosing his words carefully, I believe we have foundation for agreement. My team will prepare detailed terms tonight. We will meet tomorrow morning to finalize, but I must say, he looked at Lily with unmistakable respect, this child is remarkable. You are fortunate to have such talent in your building. After the Japanese delegation left, silence filled the conference room. Chen Wei had packed up his materials an hour ago, clearly recognizing he was obsolete. Sarah and Jennifer stood by the door, uncertain what to say. Marcus looked at Lily, who was carefully gathering her notebook and colored pens, preparing to leave as quietly as she'd arrived. Lily, Marcus said, and his voice cracked slightly, Thank you doesn't even begin to cover what you did today. She looked up at him, and for the first time he really saw her, not as a janitor's kid or an interruption, but as a complete person with dreams, dignity, and extraordinary gifts. You're welcome, Mr. Hartwell, she said simply. David appeared in the doorway, his maintenance uniform a stark contrast to the expensive suits and leather chairs. Come on, sweetheart, we should get to the library. Wait, Marcus said quickly, please, both of you, don't go yet. Father and daughter exchanged glances. David's expression was guarded, protective, the look of a man who'd learned not to trust the generosity of wealthy people. I need to, Marcus struggled for words. I need to make this right. What I said to you, Lily, in the lobby, I was cruel and wrong, and it's okay, Lily said softly. People underestimate me all the time. I'm used to it. That somehow made it worse. A 7-year-old shouldn't be used to being dismissed and belittled. It's not okay, Marcus said firmly, and I need to. He looked at David. What can I do? How can I possibly thank you both? David's weathered face was difficult to read. You don't owe us anything, Mr. Hartwell. Lily helped because it was the right thing to do. That's what I've taught her. Help people when you can, regardless of how they've treated you. The quiet dignity in those words cut deeper than any accusation. Marcus had saved his billion-dollar deal. But standing in that conference room, looking at a janitor and his brilliant daughter, he realized he'd been given something infinitely more valuable, a chance to become someone better than the man who'd laughed at a child's dreams. The question was, would he take it? That night, Marcus couldn't stop thinking about Lily Chen. Not about what she'd done for his company, though that was extraordinary, but about the hours she'd mentioned. Every evening at the library after my father finishes his shift, he pulled up David Chen's employment file, night maintenance crew, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., which meant Lily was at the library until past midnight every night, studying while other children slept. At 7 years old, Marcus walked through his penthouse, suddenly seeing it differently. The space cost $15,000 a month. His wine collection was worth more than David probably earned in a year. He had a home gym he never used, a media room with a screen he rarely turned on, and 3 blocks from his office, a child studied at a library table because that was her only option. Friday morning's final negotiation lasted 2 hours. With Lily translating, the details fell into place smoothly. Takahashi signed the preliminary agreement, and his team scheduled the formal contract signing for 3 weeks later. "Miss Lily," Takahashi said in careful English before leaving, "you have great future. Never let anyone tell you different." After they left, Marcus asked Jennifer to prepare something unusual. "I need David Chen's personnel file, his daughter's school information, and I want you to contact the Carnegie Library. Find out who runs their evening programming." "Marcus," Jennifer said carefully, "what are you planning? Something I should have thought of a long time ago." He found David that afternoon in the building's basement maintenance area, sorting cleaning supplies. David looked up warily as Marcus approached. This part of the building didn't usually see executive suits. "Mr. Chen," Marcus said, "I wanted to speak with you about Lily." David's expression immediately became guarded, protective. "If this is about yesterday, like I said, you don't owe us." "I want to establish an educational fund for her," Marcus interrupted. "Private tutors for her languages, a college fund that will cover any university she chooses." And he took a breath. "I'd like to endow a scholarship program at the Carnegie Library in her name for other children like her. Kids who have talent but not resources." David stared at him. "Mr. Hartwell, that's too much." "It's not enough," Marcus said honestly. "Your daughter saved my company. But more than that, she taught me something I'd forgotten. That genius and dedication don't care about age or money or position. She works harder than most adults I know." "She loves learning," David said softly, his eyes distant. "Her mother, my wife Maria, she died when Lily was 3. Cancer, fast and brutal. The last thing Maria made me promise was that I'd make sure Lily got every opportunity we never had." His voice caught. "I do my best, but night shift at minimum wage doesn't leave much for tutors or programs." Marcus felt something crack in his chest. While he'd been building his empire, sleeping in luxury, this man had been raising a grieving child alone, working nights, sacrificing everything to honor his dead wife's dream. "The fund is non-negotiable," Marcus said firmly. "But I have another question. Would Lily be interested in coming to the office once a week? We're expanding into international markets. Having someone who understands cultural nuances and speaks multiple languages, even as a consultant, would be invaluable." "She's 7, David said, but Marcus could see him considering it. "She's brilliant," Marcus corrected, "and I'll pay consultant rates. $50 an hour, maximum 2 hours per week, so it doesn't interfere with school. That's money for her future, for her education, for whatever she needs." David's eyes filled with tears he tried to hide. "Why are you doing this?" Marcus thought about how to answer. Because I was cruel, because I'm guilty. Those were true but incomplete. Because 3 days ago I looked at your daughter and saw nothing. And now I can't stop seeing her, seeing all the people I've probably walked past my entire life without noticing. People with talents and dreams and value that I was too arrogant to recognize. He met David's eyes. Your daughter didn't just save my deal. She might have saved me from becoming someone I'd eventually hate. David wiped his eyes roughly. She's at school now. Gets out at 3. Bring her by my office after school next week, Marcus said. I'll have the paperwork ready for the educational fund. And I want to meet with her properly, not as the man who mocked her, but as someone who wants to learn from her. As Marcus walked back to the elevator, he realized something profound. For 12 years, he'd been chasing bigger deals, more money, higher valuations. He'd measured success in dollars and power. But standing in that basement with David Chen, arranging ways to help a grieving father give his brilliant daughter the future she deserved, that felt more like success than any billion-dollar contract ever had. The elevator doors closed, and Marcus caught his reflection in the polished metal. For the first time in years, he almost liked the man looking back at him. Word spread fast in the building. Within a week, everyone knew about the miracle child who'd saved the Hartwell deal. Marcus found himself fielding questions constantly, from board members, employees, even his competitors, trying to figure out his secret weapon. But he noticed something else happening, something quieter but more significant. People started noticing David Chen. The invisible janitor suddenly had a name, a story, a remarkable daughter. Executives who'd walked past him for years now nodded good morning. Sarah Kim started a building-wide initiative to recognize and appreciate support staff. The company newsletter featured a story about David titled "The Unsung Heroes Among Us." David seemed uncomfortable with the attention at first, but Marcus caught him smiling one morning when someone thanked him by name for the clean office. True to his word, Marcus set up everything he'd promised. The educational fund, managed by a trust lawyer, would provide Lily with private language tutors, academic support, and full college tuition anywhere she wanted to attend. The Carnegie Library received a $200,000 endowment for the Lily Chen Opportunity Scholarship, supporting children from low-income families who showed academic dedication. Mrs. Rodriguez cried when they told her, "Do you know how many kids I see every day, with Lily's hunger to learn but no resources? This will change lives, Mr. Hartwell." Lily's first official consultation session was scheduled for Tuesday afternoon. Marcus prepared carefully, treating it with the same seriousness he'd give any expert consultant. He had Jennifer set up a proper office space, no talking down to a child at an oversized desk. When Lily arrived after school, still in her elementary school uniform, Marcus felt nervous in a way board meetings never made him feel. "Hi, Mr. Hartwell," she said, settling into the chair with her backpack. "Hi, Lily. Thank you for coming." He pushed a folder across the table. "I wanted to get your perspective on these marketing materials we're developing for the Japanese market. I have professional translators working on them, but after seeing your cultural understanding, I wanted your honest opinion." Lily studied the material seriously, occasionally making notes. After 15 minutes, she looked up. "The translation is technically correct," she said carefully, "but it doesn't feel right for Japanese culture. This phrase here," she pointed, "it's too direct. Japanese business culture values subtlety and implication. And this image," she indicated a photo, "showing shoes indoors would be considered disrespectful." Marcus took notes furiously. These were insights his expensive consultants had missed. They talked for 90 minutes before David knocked gently, indicating it was time to go. Marcus paid Lily for 2 hours of consultation, $100 in a check made out to her college savings account. As they prepared to leave, Lily hesitated. "Mr. Hartwell?" Can I ask you something? Of course. Why did you laugh at me in the lobby that night? The question hit like a physical blow. Marcus had been dreading it, hoping it wouldn't come up. He took a breath and decided on complete honesty. Because I was arrogant. Because I thought success made me smarter than everyone else. Because I'd built a company and forgotten what it took to build myself. He met her eyes. I looked at you and saw a child playing pretend because I'd forgotten that I was once a kid with big dreams that adults didn't believe in either. Did someone laugh at you? Lily asked quietly. Marcus felt his throat tighten. My father. I wanted to study computer science. He said I was wasting my time, that I should join his law firm. He called programming a basement hobby for nerds who couldn't make it in the real world. He'd never told anyone this story. I built Hartwell Tech partly to prove him wrong, but somewhere along the way I became him, dismissing other people's dreams because they didn't look like mine. Lily considered this seriously. My papa says hurt people unless they choose to heal instead. Your papa is a wise man. The wisest, Lily agreed. She stood, adjusting her backpack. I forgive you, Mr. Hartwell, and thank you for the scholarship fund. Mrs. Rodriguez says it's going to help a lot of kids like me. After they left, Marcus sat alone in his office as the sun set over Seattle. He'd spent 12 years building an empire, and it had taken one 7-year-old girl to show him what really mattered. His phone buzzed. Jennifer, with a message. Harrison Tech just called. James Harrison wants to meet with you personally. Says it's urgent and sensitive. Will you take the meeting? Marcus stared at the message. Harrison Tech, his biggest competitor, the company that would have gotten the Takahashi deal if Lily hadn't saved him. What could James Harrison possibly want? Whatever it was, Marcus had a feeling it was about to make things very complicated. James Harrison arrived at Marcus's office Wednesday morning, and his expression wasn't the smug superiority Marcus expected. Instead, Harrison looked troubled, almost. Guilty? Marcus, Harrison said, settling into the chair across from him. I'm here because I owe you an explanation and an apology. Marcus frowned, confused. For what? Harrison took a breath. The translator crisis that almost destroyed your Takahashi deal. That wasn't an accident. That was me. The words hung in the air like smoke. Marcus felt cold spread through his chest. What are you talking about? Margaret Chen, the Wilson translation specialist who had the family emergency. I paid her $50,000 to cancel on you at the last minute. The backup translator with visa issues. I had my legal team create bureaucratic delays. Harrison's voice was flat, ashamed. I sabotaged you, Marcus. I wanted that deal, and I was willing to play dirty to get it. Marcus stood up so fast, his chair rolled backward. You what? I know. It's inexcusable. Harrison met his eyes. But here's the thing. I didn't know about the kid. Nobody knew. And when I heard what happened, when I heard about this 7-year-old girl who stepped in and saved everything, he shook his head. I couldn't live with myself, Marcus. If my sabotage had destroyed your company, that would have hurt that child's father, endangered their livelihood. David Chen could have lost his job if Hartwell Tech went under. That little girl could have... Stop, Marcus said quietly, dangerously. You're telling me you almost destroyed everything because of corporate games? Yes. And I'm here to face the consequences. Harrison stood. I'm prepared to make a public statement, accept whatever legal action you want to pursue, and personally apologize to the Takahashi Corporation for my unethical interference. Marcus walked to his window, his mind racing. A public scandal would destroy Harrison Tech, vindicate Marcus completely. He could crush his competitor, cement his own reputation. But then he thought about Lily's words. I forgive you, Mr. Hartwell. He thought about David's quiet dignity. Lily helped because it was the right thing to do. He thought about the man he was trying to become versus the man he'd been. "No," Marcus said finally, turning back. "No public statement. No legal action." Harrison blinked. "What? You made a mistake. A serious, unethical mistake that could have destroyed people's lives, but you came here, admitted it, and are willing to face consequences." Marcus sat back down. 2 weeks ago, I would have destroyed you for this. I would have enjoyed it." He paused. "But recently I learned something about grace, about second chances, about being better than your worst moment." "Marcus, I don't deserve... Nobody deserves grace. That's what makes it grace." Marcus leaned forward. "Here's what you're going to do instead. The Lily Chen Opportunity Scholarship at Carnegie Library. You're going to match my $200,000 endowment, and you're going to establish a similar program at Harrison Tech, recognizing the talents of support staff in your own company." Harrison stared at him. "You're serious?" "Completely. You tried to hurt me by attacking something that mattered. Now you're going to help me build something that matters more." Marcus held out his hand. "Do we have an agreement?" Harrison shook his hand, his expression a mixture of disbelief and gratitude. "Thank you, Marcus. You're a better man than I am." "No," Marcus said quietly. "I'm just learning from better teachers." After Harrison left, Marcus sat alone with the weight of what he'd learned. The crisis that had brought Lily into his life hadn't been random chance or bad luck. It had been deliberate sabotage. His greatest professional trial had been engineered by a competitor. But somehow, that made everything that followed even more meaningful. From betrayal and crisis had come transformation and grace. From his darkest professional moment had come the lesson that would define the rest of his life. His phone rang. David Chen's number. "Mr. Hartwell, I hope I'm not bothering you, but Lily wanted me to call. She has something she wants to share with you if you have a moment." "Of course," Marcus said, his heart warming. "Put her on." Lily's excited voice came through. "Mr. Hartwell, I got my progress report today from my Japanese tutor, the one from your education fund. She says I'm ready to take the advanced proficiency exam. And guess what? 3 other kids started in the scholarship program at the library. Mrs. Rodriguez says they're working so hard because they want to be like me." Marcus smiled, feeling something he hadn't felt in years. Pure, uncomplicated joy in someone else's success. "That's wonderful, Lily. I'm so proud of you. Thank you for everything. For believing in me after you didn't believe in me." Marcus laughed, and it felt good, honest and clean. "You're very welcome. Keep being amazing, Lily Chen." As he hung up, Marcus realized something profound. James Harrison had tried to destroy him through sabotage and found only his own shame. But Lily Chen had saved him through grace and found a future full of possibility. In the end, destruction was easy. Anyone could tear things down. Building something beautiful from the wreckage that took courage, forgiveness, and wisdom that even some 7-year-olds understood better than most adults ever would. 3 weeks later, Marcus stood in the Carnegie Library's main hall, transformed for a special evening celebration. The Lily Chen Opportunity Scholarship's official launch brought together an unexpected crowd. Business executives in suits mingling with librarians, teachers, families from the neighborhood, and scholarship recipients clutching their award certificates. Mrs. Rodriguez dabbed her eyes as she watched Lily speak at the podium, addressing the crowd with the same confidence she'd shown in the boardroom. "I used to think I was alone in loving learning," Lily said, her voice clear despite her nervousness at speaking to so many people. "But this library showed me I wasn't alone. Mrs. Rodriguez believed in me. My papa believed in me, and now," she glanced at Marcus, "even people who once didn't believe in me have become my biggest supporters. That's what I want other kids to know. Sometimes people don't see you at first, But if you keep working, keep believing in yourself, eventually they will. And when they do, magic can happen. The applause was thunderous. David stood in the back, trying unsuccessfully to hide his tears. The Takahashi Corporation's final contract signing was scheduled for tomorrow morning, the culmination of everything. But tonight wasn't about billion-dollar deals. It was about a little girl who studied at library tables and the community that had nurtured her. After the formal program, people mingled over refreshments. Marcus found himself talking with one of the new scholarship recipients, a 9-year-old boy named Deshawn, who was teaching himself coding using library computers. "Your daughter is so cool," Deshawn said earnestly. "I want to be like her when I grow up." "She's not my daughter," Marcus corrected gently, then paused. "But I hope I get to watch her grow up. I think she's going to change the world." Sarah Kim approached with a tablet. "Marcus, I need to show you something. It's going viral." On the screen was a video. Someone had recorded Lily's speech and posted it online. It had 500,000 views in 3 hours and was climbing fast. Comments poured in. "This kid is going places. I'm a language teacher and I'm blown away. We need more programs like this." Imagine if every library had this kind of support for talented kids. Marcus watched the numbers climb, and an idea began forming. "Sarah, what would it take to expand this program? Not just Carnegie Library. What about libraries across Seattle, across Washington State?" That would be a significant investment. The Takahashi deal closes tomorrow. The first profits go to expanding Lily's program, national scale, within 2 years. Marcus felt energized in a way that billion-dollar deals had never quite managed. "And I want to establish a recognition program at Hartwell Tech, the Lily Chen Award for Overlooked Excellence. For people in our own company whose talents we might be missing because we're not looking in the right places." Jennifer, overhearing, smiled. "You know the board is going to think you've lost your mind, right?" "Good," Marcus said. "Maybe losing my old mind is exactly what I needed." As the evening wound down, Takahashi Hiroshi made a surprise appearance, entering with 2 of his executives. The crowd went quiet. "I apologize for unexpected arrival," Takahashi said in his careful English, "but I hear there is celebration for Miss Lily. I wish to attend." He bowed to Lily formally. "In Japan, we have saying, 'The nail that sticks up gets hammered down.' This means do not stand out, do not be different. But I think this saying is sometimes wrong. Miss Lily sticks up in best way possible. She should be celebrated, not hammered down." He presented Lily with a gift, a beautiful set of Japanese calligraphy brushes and ink. "For your continued studies, from myself and Takahashi Corporation. We hope someday you visit us in Tokyo." Lily bowed deeply. Perfect form, perfect respect. "Arigato gozaimasu, Takahashi-san. This is a great honor." After Takahashi left, promising to return tomorrow for the contract signing, David approached Marcus. "Mr. Hartwell," David said quietly, "I just wanted to say, you didn't have to do any of this. The fund, the scholarship, tonight's event, you didn't have to change. But you did, and that means everything to us." Marcus felt his eyes sting. "I didn't change, David. You and Lily woke up something in me that I'd forgotten was there. You reminded me why I built this company in the first place, not for money or power, but because I wanted to prove that people like me, people who didn't come from wealth or privilege, could create something meaningful." "People like you," David repeated softly. "People like us, you mean?" "Yes," Marcus agreed. "People like us." They stood together, watching Lily show her calligraphy set to the other scholarship kids, her face glowing with joy and excitement. "She's going to do great things," Marcus said. "She already has," David replied. "She saved more than your company that day, Mr. Hartwell. I think maybe she saved you too." Marcus couldn't argue with that. In his wallet, he now carried a small photo taken tonight of himself, David and Lily standing together in front of the scholarship banner. Three people from completely different worlds, brought together by crisis and transformed by grace. Tomorrow, he would sign the biggest deal of his career. The Takahashi partnership would reshape Hartwell Tech's future and cement Marcus's legacy in the industry. But tonight, standing in a public library surrounded by people who understood that knowledge and opportunity were the greatest wealth any society could offer its children, Marcus Hartwell felt richer than any contract could ever make him. The only question remaining was, what would the final chapter of this extraordinary story bring? Marcus Hartwell stood before the crowded boardroom, watching Takahashi Hiroshi sign the final pages. $1.2 billion. The deal that had nearly destroyed him was now complete, but his eyes weren't on the contract. They were on David and Lily Chen, sitting in the front row, David in a borrowed suit, Lily in her Sunday dress. As Takahashi prepared to leave, he bowed deeply to Lily. "Miss Lily," he said in careful English, "you changed everything. Thank you." After the delegation departed, Marcus faced the cameras and his assembled company. "Before anyone leaves, I need to say something." His voice was steady but emotional. "1 month ago, I laughed at this 7-year-old girl when she told me she spoke 9 languages. I mocked her, called her dreams fantasy. I was cruel and completely wrong." The room went silent. 3 days later, my arrogance nearly destroyed this company. Every translator was unavailable. This deal was collapsing. And Lily, the child I'd humiliated, walked in and saved everything. His voice cracked. "Not for money or recognition, because her father taught her to help people even when they don't deserve it." He looked at Lily. "You taught me that real success isn't measured in dollars or offices. It's measured in dedication, grace, and the quiet hours spent pursuing excellence. You reminded me why I started this company, to prove that people without privilege could build something meaningful." Marcus turned back to the cameras. "Today, Hartwell Technologies commits $50 million to the Lily Chen Excellence Program, partnering with libraries nationwide to provide scholarships for dedicated students. Every library has children like Lily. We just need to see them." Applause erupted. Marcus raised his hand. "I'm not finished. David Chen, you're promoted to Director of Facilities Management, effective immediately with appropriate compensation." David covered his face, overwhelmed. Later, alone in his office, Lily handed Marcus her worn notebook. "Will you sign it?" he wrote with trembling hands. "To Lily, you saved more than my company. You saved my soul." "Forever grateful, Marcus." "Can you forgive me?" Marcus asked. "For what I said that night?" Lily smiled. "I already did. My papa says forgiveness is about choosing not to carry hurt anymore." That night, Marcus found David in his new office. "A month ago, I was invisible," David whispered. "You were never invisible," Marcus said firmly. "I was blind, but you and Lily showed me how to see clearly." 6 months later, the program had launched in 47 states. Over 3,000 children received scholarships. Lily spoke at the United Nations, but every evening she still went to Carnegie Library with her father. Marcus visited one Tuesday, finding Lily teaching younger kids at her old table. 90 scholarships this month, she told him, glowing. One girl is learning Japanese. She says she wants to save someone's dream someday, like I did. Marcus felt tears sting his eyes. He looked at this remarkable child and finally understood the truth. Real wealth isn't measured in billions. It's measured in lives touched and the courage to become better. Leaving the library, he passed the bronze plaque. Lily Chen Excellence Center, where every child's potential matters. Some people chase success their whole lives and die empty. Marcus had been headed that direction until a 7-year-old with crooked glasses showed him what truly mattered. He'd come so close to missing it, so close to missing her. But Grace had given him a second chance, and he would spend the rest of his life making sure no other Lily Chen went unseen. The end.